Hello and welcome to Let's Review. Well, Deus Ex Month's been a bit of a catastrophe, hasn't it? Sorry for not being here for the last couple of weeks, but unfortunately I've been quite ill. And apparently I can't even hand the job off to Martin when I'm ill, because apparently when I get ill, so does he. I am sure I have explained this in the past. We are physiologically linked. When something happens to you, it also happens to me. It's why I'm stuck with this thing you call a hairstyle. And yet you wear glasses even when I've got my contact lenses in. Well, I don't actually need them, you know. They just make me look a lot smarter than you. I can't actually fault you on that. Still, on to the reason why I started this month in the first place. Deus Ex Mankind Divided, the sequel to the excellent Human Revolution and the continuation of the much vaunted Deus Ex franchise. Does it live up to its predecessors? Well, to answer that, we start as we always do, with the gameplay. Mankind Divided feels very much like its predecessor, starting with its leveling mechanic, which is almost identical, but does have one interesting new feature.
This is the augmentation screen of Deus Ex Mankind Divided, and in a lot of ways it's pretty similar to the one we had before, although now it zooms in and out nicely onto the various bits of Adam Jensen. And you should recognise an awful lot of these orgs if you played the previous game. So you've got the social enhancer, you've got the various hacking things, hacking fortify, and so on and so forth. But you'll notice we've got this collection of new orgs. And these are so-called experimental orgs. You know, so if I go here, for example, I can get a PEPS gun in my arm. Incidentally, they've taken out actually having a PEPS gun in your hand, rather than actually built in. You know, you can't carry one anymore, which is a pity because the PEPS gun was actually kind of useful. But you can get one that just fits in your arm and is very handy. And if I go here, this is remote hacking. This is one I've already unlocked, which allows me to hack things at a distance. I'll demonstrate the remote hacking ability when I show you the gameplay a little later. And then there's this Tesla thing, which allows me to stun various enemies. There's the Nano Blade, which allows you to basically just fire the blades out. And so on and so forth. Now, the thing you will notice about some of them is that they have red lines through them. The reason for this is that these new augments are so-called experimental augments, and trying to activate them boosts your system status above stable. So if I try to activate one of them, it'll push me to 150%. And if I activate more and more of them, it will overheat Adam and cause glitches and various other things. So the game encourages you, whenever you activate one of these new ones, to deactivate something else. So take it out of commission completely. So I can't get this Nano Blade now, no matter how many Praxis kits I have, because it's been deactivated. Same goes for the Typhoon system. If I really wanted, I could have got rid of, say, the Rhinodermal armor or cybernetic leg prosthetics, whatever I didn't need at the time, or wasn't expected to need throughout the entire game, I could get rid of there without any problems. It doesn't really care which you use. You know, so I got rid of one of the experimental orgs because I knew I wasn't going to use it, because in this playthrough I was going non-lethal. There is a side quest you can do that will allow you to get rid of this system, but I actually kind of like it because a lot of the new orgs are deliberately fairly powerful. Remote hacking is insanely useful. Tesla Fist, once it's fully upgraded, is actually very good for taking down groups of enemies non-lethally. And the Nano Blade is deliberately quite powerful. You know, and you can get a variant that actually overheats and explodes, which will take out lots of enemies at once. But ultimately, it's basically the same system as before.
I actually like both the new orgs and the system by which you can only have certain numbers of the new ones online at once. However, I do think the game is a bit front-loaded with Praxis kits. As soon as I got access to those new orgs, I suddenly had an awful lot of experience points to play around with, and it felt a bit much too soon. But honestly, that's a pretty minor complaint in the grand scheme of things. They've also made some significant tweaks to the hacking minigame, but once again it's still very familiar to anyone who played the previous game.
This is Mankind Divided's hacking minigame, and it's broadly the same as the one from Human Revolution, although you will notice now most of the nodes are invisible until you actually have a connecting path to them. You can sort of see the path over here, but it's not terribly helpful. So I'm going to use a reveal. This is one of several new abilities. So data scan allows you to see what's inside these data store nodes. Overclock allows you to hack through things faster. Reveal does that. And stealth guarantees that you won't be detected when you capture the next point. So I've currently got a stealth level of 3, which means that my chance of being spotted on standards is only 30 on level 3s. The lowest it will go is level 2, I should mention. Or I should rephrase that. The lowest it will go on your detection rate is 15%. So there's always a chance you'll be detected unless the actual node has a 0 rating, in which case then you can guarantee to capture it safely. So I'm just going to try going here.
Anomaly.
And I got spotted immediately, which is not helpful. And as you can see, there are these firewalls which crop up, which basically stop you and trap you and screw you over. And as you can see, I'm going to fail this one.
Access denied.
See? So yeah. And now I've been locked out of that. That's actually a pretty decent guide to the hacking system, to be honest, because it's fundamentally the same as it was, except they've thrown in through a few loopholes that are basically impossible to predict.
Honestly, I'm not a massive fan of the changes they've made here, especially these new traps that spring up from time to time, because they end up being annoying rather than challenging. It feels like pot luck. And while you can get around them using certain items, you'll be hacking so many things that using up those relatively rare items to find them just isn't worth it. It's better to just spring the trap and try and panic through it, which just isn't as much fun, frankly. All of this, of course, is simply window dressing for the main meat of the game, and I am happy to say that that's as good, or possibly even better, than it was before.
This is the main gameplay screen of Deus Ex Mankind Divided, and I've deliberately loaded a save where I'm right in the middle of a level, and right in the middle of a whole bunch of enemies. So you can see my objective on the map, but in order to get to it, I've got to drop down a level and go over. And I can choose how I'm going to do this. So I can go stealthy, and attempt to dodge between bits of cover so they don't see me, make use of my cloaking ability, which I have, or I can go a little bit more aggressive. So I'm going to demonstrate the new Tesla upgrade, which is a pretty useful little thing because it knocks people out. However, that guy clearly noticed his friend has been knocked unconscious. Now, I don't exactly have a lot in the way of firepower with me at the moment. I've got a tranquilizer sniper rifle, which is a pretty useful weapon at range, but I do have this 10mm pistol. However, since I'm attempting a non-lethal playthrough, I'll simply demonstrate that again. Because while that guy got knocked out, he didn't have time to raise the alarm before everything went to hell. But because I'm, always eager to demonstrate, many facets of gameplay, I will now equip this battle rifle. Which is a new weapon. I'm going to reload that. Now, sometimes you'll come across things like that, which can be switched on and off. You need to have the hacking upgrade I mentioned earlier, the long-range hacking ability, in order to do that. A lot of the times, the stuff you can hack with it's pretty pointless, like turning a TV on and off, which maybe will give you a distraction, but that's about it. But other times it can actually be useful, because it can be used to extend ladders, which will allow you to reach higher locations and things like that. So it does have purpose.
How can we ignore what the police are doing in Utulek?
When things go loud and violent, you're going to be relying heavily on the cover systems. So, yep. Dropped right on top of that guy. And I could have knocked him out, but I instead went for the lethal and violent option, because why not? And I don't think anybody heard that. I was obviously quiet enough. But I'm now going to, start taking pot shots and draw their attention. So, they now know I'm around here somewhere, but they're not sure where. Now they've figured it out. So I'm now going to have lots of enemies converging on me, because, as I mentioned, this is right smack in the middle of the level, which I had been playing pretty stealthy. Which means that now I'm kind of surrounded, because there's all the guys behind me that I... Oh boy. EMP grenade shuts down my orbs. But that doesn't help them very much, because I was mostly clear of it already. So the ammo situation is becoming problematic. So this is why I prefer stealth. I prefer it if they don't know I'm here, because it's quite hard to fight back against a guy who you have no idea exists. And again, not much in the way of ammo for these weapons, because this just isn't what this build is designed for. But more EMP grenades, which they're very happy to throw around, given that they're all augmented as well. I find that a bit strange on this level, but doesn't really matter. So yes. So if I wanted, I could go into my inventory, I could drop this worthless battle rifle, and I could pick up this combat rifle, which actually has bullets in it. And I can then equip that. Little indicator there of where I was, because they don't know where I am. Oh, one of them spotted me. So I can go in and take him out. And yep, goes into a cutscene whenever you use a melee attack, which I'm still not a fan of. Wasn't a massive fan of it in the previous game, I'm still not a fan of it here. And it indicates when you tag them, and yeah. So yeah, you can gun your way through enemies if you want, or you can sneak around them. And honestly, that's kind of it. Your main options really are stealth or all guns blazing. You can, there are variants on it, and it's entirely possible to design a build based entirely around very loud, so no attempt at stealth at all, but also completely non-lethal. If you use stun guns and tranq rifles, you can take everybody out without having to kill any of them. And you can get upgrades for the Typhoon that'll have a non-lethal and things like that. So you do have options, is what I'm saying. But I've got myself into kind of an unwinnable position here as a result of just demonstrating things, and I just died. But fundamentally, that's a reasonable example of the gameplay of Mankind Divided.
The levels are large, they offer multiple ways to play through, and the enemies are smart and competent. And honestly, they're actually really fun to play against. If I graded purely based on mechanics, Mankind Divided would be an easy recommendation. Unfortunately for them, I'm one of those weirdos who actually values story over gameplay. And in that regard, Mankind Divided falls flat on its face. Mankind Divided's story actually starts off pretty promising. Following on from the end of the last game, Jensen has become an agent for Interpol, and he's hunting down various groups of bad guys throughout the world relating to augments and using augmented weaponry. This is largely due to the fact that following the events of the previous game, augments are now widely feared by the population, and as a result the police treat them abysmally and they've started funneling them into ghettos. And this is kind of where the problems start. The simple reason is that while I have absolutely no problem with science fiction that handles important societal issues of the day, you need a certain amount of subtlety or light touch, or you need to do it through clever analogy. I haven't actually seen a metaphor this unsubtle since Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. As in the Star Trek episode with the aliens with the half white and half black faces. Yes, this game is about racism. And unfortunately, it's too heavy-handed. It passes commentary and goes into parody. The police are cartoonishly evil. There's one sequence where they gun down a completely innocent person, and the response to finding out they didn't even kill an augment is to shrug and just consider it the price of doing business. They sound like terrible police officers. They are, and frankly, it's a running theme for this game. The entire police force, and for that matter, basically everybody you meet, is either afraid of orgs or wants to hurt orgs, and frankly, it just feels completely over the top. Because, let's be honest, what they're doing to the augmented citizens is clearly wrong, and anybody with half an iota of a moral compass would notice that. But nobody in this game seems to, unless they're augmented themselves. And frankly, that's a bit of a problem, because it takes away from the realism of this world. Where are the people protesting the police brutality? Where are the marches in favour of augments? All of this stuff should be here, and it isn't. And as a result, the world just feels like an over-the-top parody. Was that not perhaps the effect that they were going for? Maybe, but if that was the case, I think it was a mistake. And then there is this game's single biggest problem. It isn't finished. Oh, this game has an ending, but all it does is just stop. It raises an awful lot of questions and doesn't answer any of them. It didn't quite take me 10 hours to complete, and I wasn't exactly speed running it either. I died quite a few times and had to backtrack and all the usual stuff you would expect from a Deus Ex game. And yet, shortness isn't necessarily a problem, provided you tell a complete story. But Deus Ex Mankind Divided just doesn't. And it took me a while, but I finally figured out exactly what this game puts me in mind of. This game is Human Revolution all over again. It's just a version of Human Revolution that ends after the first boss fight. That would be rather an abrupt ending. And it matches perfectly, right down to the design of the boss in question. Big hulking guy, robot arms filled with guns. And the problem here is that, as I said, the game raises an awful lot of questions. Where did Jensen's new orgs come from? Who installed them and why? What are the Illuminati's plans? What the hell is going on in this world? Who is Janus? Who is this group Jensen's working for secretly? How did he end up working for them? We don't know the answers to any of these things. And then there's the shameless sequel bait in the ending. How bad? Some of the worst I have seen in years. And even during a mid-credits scene, it's actually revealed that one of the characters has been secretly working against you for the Illuminati. And that would have been a good twist, if it wasn't for the fact that the character in question was a complete non-entity. She turned up once near the beginning of the game, and then once more right near the end of the game, and that was it. So not exactly a major player then. Well, given that the second time she turned up I mistook her for a completely different character, because at least I'd done a side quest for that character, yeah, she isn't even a minor character. She's a non-entity, and therefore the twist has no impact on me at all. Here's the problem. Because of the way this game ends, it's incredibly unsatisfying. And ultimately, it feels like this game has been chopped up. And if they attempt to release the true ending as a downloadable content, I am going to be pissed. Because let's face it, guys, if my response to your game ending is this...
Okay, so... Lovely job. Are you kidding me? I'd heard this game ended abruptly, but... Yeah, the general comment was that it would probably take you about 25 hours or something like that. I've done it in 10. I've done it in less than 10. I mean, what? Seriously? That's it?
You have made a pretty major mistake. The graphics are gorgeous. I would never attempt to deny that, and the hair in particular does actually look pretty good at times, although for some reason some people's hair looks really, really strange. Not sure why. It's also worth noting that there was a pretty major bug that prevented people using the train to get around, which actually prevented you continuing the main quest at one point. This does now appear to have been fixed, I will clarify that, but it was pretty annoying while it was there. Overall, this game does actually look fabulous from a purely technical standpoint. The art style for this game works pretty well for the most part. They've dropped the yellowish sheen from the previous game and gone for a more realistic look here. And honestly, I kind of miss the yellow. But for what they've done here, it certainly works, and a lot of the designs do definitely work. The police in their sort of giant hulking power armor suits in particular are suitably intimidating, especially given that they are very difficult to fight. And a lot of this story is told through level design and just elements of how the world is laid out. There's a lot of subtlety and complexity to it, and it's actually really good in that front. So overall, I'm very happy with the art. Likewise, the audio is pretty good for the most part. The music is reasonably nice and works fairly well, and the sound effects are completely functional. The voice acting is a little bit more mixed though, and part of the reason for that is that the few characters who do return from Human Revolution seem to have new voice actors. not counting Jensen himself, who is of course the same gravel gargling chap as ever. While the new voice actors do perfectly reasonable jobs, and I don't have any problems with any of the new people, it's always weird to me whenever you see a character who's meant to be familiar with a different voice coming out of them. Overall, though, I can't really say anything too negative about the audio. It's perfectly fine. Now, I don't normally talk about microtransactions in games, largely because I almost never need to. They're very rare in PC games. But I felt the need to talk about them here, because frankly the microtransactions in this game are bollocks, pure and simple.
The microtransactions in this game are accessed pretty easily. You have a storage system here in your inventory, so I just click here. And these are all the things I have available as a result of microtransactions. Or, in my case, because I technically pre-ordered this game. I actually got it about 4 or 5 hours before it was officially released. So, I've got this elite pistol and this classic revolver. And the reason I haven't put any of these into my inventory is because you can only transfer them in once. And I don't mean when you start a new game you have to move them over again. I mean you only ever get them one time. If you want to buy new ones, you can go into the shop. So you can buy a Praxis kit for 99 pence. You can buy 5 Praxis kits for 4 quid. You can buy 10 for 7 quid. You can buy some credits. So the stuff you can get from here isn't massive, but it does unbalance the game. Because obviously 10 Praxis kits for 7 quid... 10 Praxis kits is a lot. But again, you can only bring those in from your storage area once. So you'll only ever have access to those 10 once. So if you restart the game, to play again, and you want to have the same overpowered build, you're going to have to pay again.
The fact that these microtransactions exist at all kind of bugs me. The fact that they're single playthrough only is appalling. And frankly, coming from a game that already costs full price, we should not accept this. This is not an okay thing to add. Microtransactions are perfectly fine in the case of free mobile games. I've got several games on my iPad that I will happily chip in 5 or 10 quid to because I want to support the people who made it and the game was free in the first place. But when I've already paid full price for a game, I should not be having to shell out extra money for microtransactions. We're lucky that this game was clearly balanced without them in mind, but if they start making games in future with built-in microtransactions where it's all but necessary to advance, then this will be how it started. Avoid them like the plague, because otherwise we're probably going to end up paying through the nose in order to actually finish our video games in the future. So, did I enjoy Deus Ex Mankind Divided? Well, I was enjoying it, up until it ended. Should you buy it? If you don't care about story, if you are somebody for whom gameplay is the most important thing, then Mankind Divided may well keep you happy. It has excellent gameplay, and you can replay levels many, many times and find all sorts of interesting tricks to getting through them. But if you're like me and you prefer a game with a solid story, with a good solid beginning, middle and end that sets up its characters, goes through a plot and has them learn something, you are going to be bitterly, bitterly disappointed. This game is half a game. It's clearly been hacked up in order to do sequels and to sell DLC. And frankly, that just makes it incredibly disappointing. I can't recommend this game, certainly not at full price. If you can snag it after a significant price drop, go for it. But at the moment, I can't recommend it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I recently bought myself a doorstop. And I want to get back to it because I'm only a small way into it. I will see you later.